Well, welcome and thank you all so much for coming to this special service this morning. We're going to tell you a few stories, sing some songs, we'll even have a prayer or two for all those who served in Australia's wars. We're building a field of poppies. As we tell the stories and remember the various conflicts and those who served, we're going to build a field of poppies down here, and you won't be able to see it on the big screen because we have other things for you to look at. But at the end, if you would wish to come up and have a look at the field of poppies that we're building, if there are any left, and there probably will be, you might even add one if you feel so inclined. But please come up after the service and have a look at our field of poppies and this beautiful wreath which was made by Roberta, and it says, "Lest we forget," and because Roberta made it, it says that in English and in Maori. So that's our field of poppies. It's an empty field now, but as our service goes along, we'll build a field of poppies and tell you the stories and sing you the songs. Okay, would you please welcome Bradley Eustace and the Stone the Crows Choir. Now, Stone the Crows chaplain, Peter Powell.
How do we provide a prayerful welcome to such a service? There are memories of comrades in arms, memories of loss, memories of grief, post-traumatic stress disorder, rarely mentioned in public. My friend Ray, a medic in the Malayan campaign, was on patrol. Suddenly shots rang out from a sniper. The patrol returned fire, and a cry of pain was heard. When Ray got to the wounded sniper, he held in his arms an 11-year-old boy as he died. When little Patty sang songs from Vietnam, I was suddenly overwhelmed with tears, and confirming gentle hands reached out to give me comfort. I remembered as a young minister a divided church. I remembered a divided nation. I remembered some young men registering for conscription. I remembered some refusing and going to jail. I remembered divided families. So this is our prayer as we remember. We bring to this service a wide range of emotions, a wide range of experiences. Allow yourself to experience all your emotions, whatever your view of war and its consequences. Respect each other. Love your neighbour in difference and agreement, and rekindle hope that we may yet achieve a world without hate.
Would you like to stand and join us? We're going to sing our only hymn from the service, and it is the recessional. The choir will lead the way. If you remember it, please sing along. It doesn't matter how it sounds, it's the thought that counts. After the recessional, there will be the last post and 1 minute silence. So I'd ask you to remain standing for that, the last post and the 1 minute silence. But right now, the recessional.
Dominion
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to tell you a few stories today, but two very, very special ones. And to tell us those two very special stories, I'd like to welcome Peter Schilling, RAN.
Australian Victoria Cross number 1. On 24 July 1900, during action at Vredefort in the northern Free State, South Africa, Lieutenant Neville Howes, a 36-year-old officer in the New South Wales Army Medical Corps, saw a trumpeter fall wounded in a fierce encounter with the enemy. He rode through very heavy crossfire to rescue the man. When his horse was shot from under him, he continued on foot, reached the wounded man, dressed his wound, and carried him back to safety. For valour under fire, Lieutenant House, a non-combatant officer who did not carry weapons, became the first member of the Australian military to be awarded the Victoria Cross. Although his act of bravery occurred before Federation, his Victoria Cross, Australia's first, was officially gazetted on 4 June 1901, 6 months after we became a nation. Neville Howes was born in Somerset, trained as a doctor, and came to Australia in 1889 because of his poor health. He set up a medical practice in Orange, New South Wales, and was twice mayor of that city. He served in World War I, at the capture of New Guinea, at Gallipoli, and on the Western Front. He took charge of evacuating wounded men from the beach at Gallipoli and described the arrangements for dealing with wounded ANZACs as inadequate to the point of criminal negligence. He became director of the AIS Medical Services with the rank of Surgeon General and later rose to the rank of Major General. He was elected to federal parliament in 1922, was knighted twice, and became the Australian Minister for Defence in the Scullin government. He died of cancer in 1930, aged 67.
Would you welcome Gregory North?
Before Gallipoli, there was Eland's River. How many of you have heard of Eland's River? Eland's River was a supply post on a rocky ridge in the Western Transvaal. The camp contained 1,500 horses, oxen and mule, 100 wagons and supplies valued at over £100,000. On the 4th of August 1900, the Boer commando force of 4,000 men surrounded and laid siege to the post, which was defended by 200 Rhodesian militiamen and 300 Australian militia fighting as the Australian Imperial Bushmen. 141 Queenslanders, 105 from New South Wales, 42 Victorians, 9 Western Australians and 2 Tasmanians. None of these men had ever been shot at before. The Boers had 12 modern field guns and snipers positioned on 3 sides of the camp. The colonial defenders had 1 Maxim machine gun and 1 ancient 7-pound muzzle-loading field gun. Unfortunately, the supplies of Eland River did not include ammunition. Over 2,500 shells landed on the post during the first 2 days of the siege, and nearly all of the 1,500 horses, mules and oxen were killed. The one field gun the defenders had was old and faulty. Queenslander Major Tunbridge had to dismantle it, repair it and reassemble it 4 times during the siege. The only shells they had were damaged and bent. Tunbridge spent his nights reshaping each one of the shells with a file so that they would fit the gun. Twice British forces tried to relieve them, but were driven back by the Boers. They were trapped without cover under the blazing sun with the stench of 1,500 dead animals in the air. They had no access to water except by night patrols through enemy lines. Boer Commander De La Rey sent a message under a flag of truce. He offered to escort the trapped men to the nearest British post. He even offered to let the officers keep their weapons. The Australians' written reply read, "If De La Rey wants our camp, why does he not come and take it? We will be pleased to meet him and his men and promise him a great reception at the end of a toasting fork. Australians will never surrender. Australia forever." Our nation was exactly 8 months old at the time. The Australians fighting were actually soldiers from different colonies who had left home before Federation. When De La Rey sent his second offer of honourable surrender and safe passage, the British officer in charge replied, "Look, even if I wish to surrender to you, and I don't, I am commanding Australians who would cut my throat if I accepted your terms." Finally, the British realised the fort was still holding out, and Kitchener himself led a force of 20,000 men to Eland's River, and the siege was lifted. Losses were 12 dead and 58 wounded. A British soldier called Eland's River the brightest page in the history of this war. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said, "When the ballad makers of Australia seek a subject, let them turn to Eland's River." So George Essex Evans wrote the poem, "We were dreaming of home faces and of old familiar faces. We were dreaming of home faces and old familiar places, and the gum trees and the sunny plains 5,000 miles away. But the challenge woke and found us with 4,000 rifles round us, and death stood laughing at us at the breaking of the day. They called on us to surrender, and they let their cannon lag. They offered us our freedom for the striking of the flag. But we sent the answer in. They could take, but they could win. We hadn't come 5,000 miles to fly the coward's rag." Then we saw the ranks of Kitchener across the copy grey, and we laughed because we knew, in spite of hellfire and delay, on Australia's page forever, we had written Eland's River. We had written it forever and a day. 15 years after Eland's River, the ANZACs landed at Gallipoli, and the Battle of Eland's River faded from the memory of most Australians.
When I was a young man, carried me back, and I lived the free life on the road. From the Murray's Green Basin to dusty outback, I was my Matilda all over. In 1915, the country said, "Son, it's time you stop rambling, there's work to be done." So they gave me a tin hat, they gave me a gun, marched me away to war. And the band played waltzing Matilda when the ship pulled away from the quay. Amidst all the tears waving and cheers. You sailed off to Gallipoli. How well I remember that terrible day when our blood stained the sand and the water, and how in that hell that it calls to Bay we were butchered like lambs at the slaughter. Johnny Turkey was great, he cried himself well, rained us with bullets and he showered us with shells, and in 5 minutes flat he blown us all to hell. Nearly blew us back home to Australia, and the band played waltzing Matilda. When we stopped to bury our slain, we buried ours and the Turks buried theirs, and we started all over again. And those that were left, we tried to survive in that mad world of blood, death and fire. And for 10 very weeks I kept myself alive. Around me the corpses piled higher. A big Turkish shell knocked me ass over the head. When I awoke in the hospital bed, so what had done? Well, I wished I was dead. Knew there were worse things than dying. So no more, I'll go waltzing Matilda all around the green bush far and near, to hum tens and pegs, a man needs both legs. No more waltzing Matilda for me. So they gathered wounded, the crippled, the maimed, and they shipped us back home to Australia. The armless, the legless, the blind, the insane, those proud, wounded heroes of Sula. And when the ship pulled into Circular Quay, I looked at the place where my legs used to be, and thank Christ there was no one there waiting for me. To grieve and to mourn and to pity, and the band played waltzing Matilda when they carried us down the gangway. Nobody cheered, they just stood there and stared. Then they turned all their faces away. So now, every April I sit on my porch and I watch the parade pass before me. I see my old comrades, how proudly they march, renewing old dreams of past glory. And the old men march slowly, all bones stiff and sore, the tired old heroes of a forgotten war, and the young in glass while they marching forward. And I ask myself the same question, and the band plays waltzing Matilda. The old men still answer the call. Year after year, their numbers are fewer. Someday no one will march there home. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, oh, come waltzing Matilda with me. And the ghosts may be heard as they march by their lawn. Oh, come waltzing Matilda with me.
So, our poppy field is starting to bloom, and those poppies were presented in memory of those from the Frontier War, Colonial Wars, the Maori Wars and the Boer War, and those who landed at ANZAC. When the bugle sounds advance and it's time to take your chance, when the bullets fly and men are being shot, though she's never held a gun, we all know she's the one that has the very worst job of the lot. Red Cross nurse. Oh, she'll ease your pain and thirst, and she'll tend you and pretend she doesn't hear you swear and curse. She'll say you're getting better when you know you're getting worse, but you love her like a mother. Red Cross nurse.
Until the ABC dramatised the story of the ANZAC nurses, most Australians never realised there were Australian women serving at Gallipoli. They served on the 15 hospital ships that operated offshore at ANZAC Cove. Just one of those ships, the Gascon, took over 8,000 sick and wounded men from the Gallipoli Peninsula to hospitals on Imbros, Lemnos, Salonika, Egypt, Malta and England. A force of Australian nurses was raised in May and sent to establish a hospital on Lemnos. They arrived just as the August offensive started, but there was no hospital, just a few tents and the nurses. Yet hundreds of wounded were sent there, and this was what Major General Neville House VC called criminal negligence. From a nurse's diary. On 10th of August, a convoy of wounded arrived at night, and the next day, another 400 seriously wounded stretcher cases were left on the beach, most of them horribly shattered and many dying. We had no equipment and no water to give them a drink. We could only feed them and dress their wounds. Many died. The store ship didn't arrive until 20th of August. There was no medical equipment whatever, and no water to drink or wash. The wounded were just laid on the ground on blankets or on the floors of tents. The scenes were too awful to describe. It would be better for these men to be killed outright. On December 19th, Gallipoli was successfully evacuated.
Come lay down the sword and the rifle, whether you're ANZAC or Turk, and we'll sail away across Imbros Bay and leave all the worms to their work. The moon will still ride through the night, friend. The sun will still brighten the day. Let the dead rest below, where wildflowers grow, while rivers of blood flow away. Come loosen the belt and the tunic, and take off those heavy boots too. Leave the messages to rust, let the guns choke with dust. There are better things for men to do. The harvest is heavy and waiting. The eyes of women are red. They'll soon come out when the hills bursting flow. rest of us live, not forget but forgive, as the rivers of blood have run dry. The moon will still rise through the night rain, the sun will still brighten the day. Let the dead rest below, where wildflowers grow, and rivers of blood flow away.
Singing Rivers of Blood. All these items are in your program, you can follow through. And the poppies were presented for all who served in World War I on land, sea, air, and of course the nurses. Now, the Siege of Tobruk, 1941, was a very Australian affair. 15,000 Aussies provided the infantry at Tobruk. 12,000 British troops made up the artillery brigades. It was a matter of great pride back home in Australia that Hitler's first defeat was suffered at the hands of Australian soldiers. The name Rats of Tobruk was taken from phrases used in the German propaganda radio broadcast. Radio Berlin described the Australians as caught like rats in a trap during the siege. The Germans didn't understand why the men of the 9th Division removed metal from a German bomber they had shot down with a salvaged German gun and made themselves metal, shaped like rats and wore them proudly. Their dry wit was a source of national pride and inspiration. Here are the official rules of a cricket game played between Australia's 20th Brigade and Britain's 107th Royal Horse Artillery at Tobruk on July the 30th, 1941. Rule 2. Players to be continuous until 1800 hours, except for interference by air raids. Play will not, repeat, play will not cease during merely shell fire. Rule 4. Umpires will wear a white coat if available and carry a loaded rifle with a fixed bayonet. Rule 6. All players to be searched for concealed weapons before the start of play. And all weapons found, except for grenades, mills, bombs and revolvers, will be confiscated. This does not apply to umpires. Rule 8. Manager will make medical arrangements and have an ambulance in attendance. I have no idea what happened to rules 1, 3, 5 and 7. They just weren't there. When I was a kid, the Rats always received the loudest cheer every ANZAC Day, but in 2007 there were only 80 Victorian Rats of Tobruk left, all aged in their 80s and 90s. And they decided to sell their meeting hall, Tobruk Hall House, and hoped to raise $1 million for the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, where there is a Rats of Tobruk neuroscience ward. Multi-millionaire truck owner Bill Gibbons, whose dad served in North Africa, beat off 4 other bidders to buy the hall and paid $400,000 above the top estimate and then gave it back to them to keep as long as they liked. Now, while writing a book about Australia's World War II 10 years ago, I was trying to make conversation with my 90-year-old dad in the nursing home. Never an easy thing to do. We never got on too well, and he served in the Royal Navy and rarely spoke about the war. I told him I was researching the events of Tobruk. The supply convoys, mostly old merchant ships, were hammered by the Luftwaffe and the U-boats. 21 supply ships were lost, and 5 Royal Naval vessels lost supplying Tobruk in 8 months. You Brits called it the Tobruk Ferry, I said, but us Aussies called it the Scrap Iron Fleet. You were on a destroyer then, weren't you? I said. And he answered, yeah, the HMS Antelope. Where were you? I said, were you in the North Sea? No, he said, we were on the bloody Tobruk ferry for 7 months. I'd researched and written something that my father had lived through. We never really got on too well, but I looked after him for the last 10 years of his life, and I'm wearing his medals today. So I guess that's what ANZAC Day is about. Now, we're going to add to our field of poppies for those who served in World War II, Army, RAAF, RAF, a lot of Australians served in the Battle of Britain in the RAF, and the Navy and the nurses. But we're going to listen to Grant Lewis, a song called Full Moon Tonight. Grant's friend Peter Knight only found out what his father did as a bomber navigator in World War II when his wartime diary was unearthed after he passed away. In his diary, he described in great detail his profound fear of flying the missions, especially when the moonlight made them clearly visible to the enemy fighter pilots.
The faces I see are passing illusions of men on a journey to kill or to die. Can't help the feeling that we all know some of us won't be coming home. A full moon tonight, a full moon tonight, but fly with me and bring me home. Never thought the moonlight would scare me so. Fly with me, Lord, and bring me home. New faces come, no one's go, till no one knows anyone anymore. They pack your bags and send them home. The morning after you lose your war. The full moon tonight, the full moon tonight, but fly with me and bring me home. Never thought the moonlight would scare me so. Fly with me, Lord, bring me home. All men must fall, it matters not when. Time will always win in the end. And vision remains of youth in its prime, ghosts who never grow old with time. The full moon tonight, the full moon tonight, but fly with me and bring me home. Never thought the moonlight would scare me so. Fly with me, Lord, and bring me home.
it's now time for another great ANZAC tradition. We're going to play two-up. Now we have a wonderful prize, which I bet you can't guess what it is. It's a couple of bottles of port. Someone's got a cricket. And I think we're giving 4 of the sippers that you'll be able to enjoy it with friends, hopefully. So, we're all going to play two-up. It's fairly easy. I'll tell you what to do in just a moment. I'd like one of the veterans to come up and do the, who's down there who'd like to do one of the vets? Someone, come on, you all play two-up. Yep, okay. I've got the kip, I've got the coins. Now, the two-up tradition began, I think, at ANZAC, or at, there's a kip, and the pennies are, it's a daddy daycare kip, so it may work. And we've got I've marked the tails here. I've put little bits on the tails because you haven't got your glasses on. Mine aren't working that well, so we'll be right. Now, this is how it works. Just hang. Oh, I'll tell you how. There's this wonderful story from when the ANZACs were at Mena Camp, which was outside Cairo near the pyramids, and they were causing, or they couldn't wait to get rid of them off to Gallipoli because they were causing all kinds of trouble. The Battle of the Wagga was the first battle they fought over there, and it wasn't against the enemy. They set fire to the red light district and completely destroyed it in Cairo and got into all sorts of strife. But there was a story of the Arab who was working for the troops, and he said, they are so religious. These Australian men are so religious. He said on the weekend they all gather in a big circle and they bow their heads and then they look up to the sky and then they look down and they all say, Jesus Christ. So, someone is going to win this. Let's hope it doesn't take too long. You should put your programs on the seat and all stand. One of these lucky people is going to win that wonderful two-up prize. We haven't got time to have a ring and bet, but we're going to all play anyway. I want you to choose with your two hands, and your neighbours will check, no changing. I want you to put one of your hands on either your head or your bum. Head or your bum. Everybody, have a look beside you, make sure that no one cheats. Put your other hand on your head or your bum. You can have two on your head, you can have two on your bum, or you can have one of each. Everybody decide now. You cannot change. Right. Oh, we need a drum roll. Can we have a drum roll, please? Or a... Here we go. Right. This one is a tail. All the people with hands on both hands on their heads, sit down. This one is a head. People still standing should have had a hand on either end. The rest of you, sit down. People still standing, make another decision. Both on your head, both on your tail, or one each. Okay, everybody decided. The people who are already out, they're all angry and annoyed. You can check them. Make sure they don't change. You're either both on head, both on tail, or one of each, and away we go. This one is a tail.
The other one.
This one is a tail. Okay, goes left. Goes left, make your decision. You can leave them both on your bum, or you can go two on your head, or you can go one on each. Are you ready? Drum roll! This one is a tail. This one is a head. couple of dozen, maybe a dozen or so. Okay, make your decision again. You can change, you can stick. That's not fair, the chaplain's still in, he's getting help. Okay, drum roll. This one is a tail. This one is a tail. So, who's left? I can see 1, 2. A couple, okay. All right. Make your decision. 2 on your head, 2 on your tail. Don't look around and see what the others are doing. Make your decision. 4, about half a dozen left, I can't really see. Okay. Drum roll. This one is a tail. This one is a tail. Who's left? One lady over there. Stand up if it's still in. Don't sit down if you're still in. Who had that? Can we see it? I can't see that. There's one lady over here, is that right? Oh, there's one up the back. Okay. All right, if you're still in, come down the front, please. Come down the front so we can see you. If you're still in, that lady, come down the front, quick. I mean, after all, we're playing for not exactly cheap stations, but 2 bottles of our port. So if you're still in, we'll get you down the front. Okay. Is that you, Eric? Is that Eric? Okay. I hope you win, because you'll whip me otherwise. This is Eric, the whipmaker, down here. And we have 1 lady coming. So we have 3 people remaining. Very exciting. Okay. Well, it would be good if we could get rid of this in one more throw, and if one of you went all heads and one of you went all tails and the other one went heads and tails. So make your decision. Make your decision. What are you going to do? Eric's gone tails and who's gone heads and tails. You're going heads and that lady's going. This will be it. One of these lucky people will get to drink 2 bottles of our port and then a free trip to the hospital. No. Okay, drum roll! Oh, this one is a head. This one is a tail. Yes, he said that hadn't happened, I was going to get a whipping. I've seen those bloody stockers. Okay. Right, thank you so much for that. I hope you enjoyed your traditional tour. Now, tonight we'll celebrate ANZAC in a wonderful, light-hearted. ANZAC is a day of sadness, and it's like you're starting to go. Is that? ANZAC is a day of sadness, but tonight we're just going to relax and enjoy a wonderful, wonderful show. A light-hearted, enjoyable and entertaining way to celebrate our last day together, our last show, and ANZAC Day. But when I told, and look, I should say that entertainers are not known to be early risers. 11 o'clock is sort of, you know, blinking your eyes and maybe getting a coffee. But when I told Greg, who our musical director, Greg, when I told him that what we were doing, and he told the Swing Sisters, who are tonight's entertainment, they asked, could they be involved in the service? The Swing Sisters.
Every day
do that session for us, and we really appreciate it. And of course, our musical director, Greg Hooper. He's not going to get out of bed that early either. Okay, well, the Korean War. It lasted 3 years and 1 month. An armistice was signed on the 27th of July 1953. And the ending was so sudden that some soldiers had to be convinced that it was really over. Nearly 4 million Koreans and Chinese were killed. More than half the dead were Korean civilians. Australian casualties numbered over 1,500, including 340 dead. Sergeant Bill Collins, who later became Air Vice Marshal, once said, "No one knew I was home from Korea. They used to ask, 'What are those medals for?' They just didn't have a clue." In 2017, the sacrifices from that conflict were finally commemorated with a new memorial on ANZAC Parade in Canberra, the National Korean War Memorial. For those men who fought, there's no closure because that war has never ended. It's still just a ceasefire. Then came Vietnam. Please welcome Keith Ramsey.
I served in Vietnam in 1971 as a conscript. I was with 1 Field Squadron Royal Australian Engineers. We were also known as the Tunnel Rats. Our son is also an engineer at the moment. He has served in Iraq. My grandfather served at Gallipoli and in France and also in the Second World War. In 1962, Australia sent 30 military advisors to South Vietnam. By 1965, it was become clear that the South Vietnamese was losing the struggle, and the United States committed 200,000 troops and requested support from other nations. Australia dispatched the 1st Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, 1RA, in June 1965. In 1966, a task force consisting of 2 battalions, an RAF squadron of Iroquois helicopters, replaced 1RA. Unlike 1RA, the task force included conscripts called up under the National Service Scheme. A 3rd RAF squadron and a destroyer from the Royal Australian Navy joined the conflict. All 9 battalions of the RAR served at one time or another at the height of Australia's involvement, that they had 8,500 troops in Vietnam. In August 1966, the company of 6 RA, or RAR, we call them RA, was engaged in a battle of Long Tan. During the 3 hours of fierce fighting, it seemed greatly outnumbered Australian forces would be overrun. But the Viet Cong withdrew, leaving behind 245 dead. 18 Australians were killed, 24 wounded. The battle ended communist dominance in Phu Quoc province. From 1970, Australia wound down its military efforts in Vietnam. In December 1972, a detachment of advisors for the last Australian troops to come home. Their unit had seen continuous service in South Vietnam for 10.5 years. Australia's participation forming on 11th of January 1973. The only troops remaining were a platoon guarding the Australian embassy in Saigon. In the weeks before the fall of Saigon, on the 30th of April 1975, the RWA Hercules transport flew humanitarian missions to save civilians, refugees and Vietnamese orphans before finally taking out the embassy staff on the 25th of April. The war was a cause of great social political dissent in Australia and many soldiers met a hostile reception and suffered long-term post-war problems on their return home. I was one of the 50,000 Australians, including ground troops, Air Force and naval personnel, who served in Vietnam. 520 Australians died, one entertainer included in that, and almost 2,400 wounded in that conflict. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
And while Marcus was playing that beautiful war tune, Ashikama Farewell, we had poppies presented for the Malayan crisis, Borneo, Korea, and of course, Vietnam. Would you welcome back Peter Schilling, RAN.
Australian Victoria Cross number 100. On 22nd of June 2013, a platoon from the 2nd Australian Commando Regiment conducted a nighttime raid on a Taliban-held village in Uruzgan Province, Afghanistan. Shortly after landing by helicopter, a team led by Corporal Cameron Baird from Burnie in Tasmania came under fire from several enemy positions. Corporal Baird quickly seized the initiative and led his team to attack the positions, killing 6 of the enemy and enabling the assault to continue. Soon afterwards, another Special Operations Task Force team came under enemy fire, heavy enemy fire, resulting in its commander being seriously wounded. Without hesitation, Corporal Baird led his team to provide support. With complete disregard for his own safety, Corporal Baird charged the enemy positions and neutralised the new threat with grenades and rifle fire. With the main building now isolated, Corporal Baird drew the enemy fire and then moved to cover. This action enabled his team to regain the initiative. On 3 separate occasions, Corporal Baird charged the enemy-held building. On the first occasion, he charged the door and engaged the enemy with rifle fire, but was forced to withdraw when his rifle ceased to function. He fixed the problem and again advanced under heavy fire, engaged the enemy through the doorway, but had to take cover to reload. For a third time, he drew enemy fire away from his team and attacked the doorway. In this third attempt, he killed several of the enemy. The building was taken and the operation achieved its goal. Corporal Baird displayed conspicuous gallantry, composure and leadership under fire and undoubtedly saved the lives of others in his section. He himself was killed during the action. Also a veteran of conflicts in East Timor and Iraq, Corporal Baird had been involved in the Afghanistan conflict for 6 years. In February 2014, he was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross, becoming the 100th Australian soldier to be awarded the honour.
There is a symbol. We love and adore it. You see it daily, wherever you go. Long years have passed since our fathers once wore it. What is the symbol? We all should know.
It's a brown slouch hat with the sign turned up, and it means the world to me. It's a symbol of our nation, the land of liberty, and the soldiers, they wear it, how proudly they bear it, for all the world to see. Just a brown slouch hat with the sign turned up, and it stands for victory.
Don't you thrill as young Bill passes by? Don't you beam at the gleam in his eye? Head erect, shoulders square, tunic specking span. Every inch a soldier, every inch a man. as they swing down the street, aren't they grand? 3 abreast from the beat of the band. But what do we remember when the boys have passed by, marching so brave and so strong?
It's a brown slouch hat with the side turned up, and it means the world to me. It's the symbol of our nation, the land of liberty. And the soldiers, they wear it, how proudly they bear it, for all the world to see. It's a brown slouch hat with the side turned up, and it's red for victory.
And as the choir sang that wonderful song, written by the comedian George Wallace back in the 40s, we presented, or poppies were presented for the Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and all of us who had family members who served. I'm going to hand over to Chrissy now to close the ceremony.
Thank you. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eyes, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end, against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. As the stars shall be bright when we are dust, moving in marches upon the heavenly plain, as the stars that are starry in the time of our darkness, to the end, they remain. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Today, thank you. I hope that all of you feel that we have done justice to the people that have given us our freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I hope you, as Christy said, feel that we did justice to the fallen and to ANZAC Day. I'd just like to thank everybody. It was a huge exercise. We had a big rehearsal, and I'm amazed that it went. Rehearsals are always interesting. They make you nervous. Please come up and have a look at our field of poppies and the wreath. And all the poppies that we're wearing and the wreath and so on were made by Roberta. She's not an Aussie, but she's a Kiwi. But thank you everybody, and a big special thank you to Greg and his twin sisters for doing that. They didn't have to, but they wanted to. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your day.